When he began juicing to bounce back from a serious injury, he had no idea that one day he was going to start a health food revolution that provides healthy choices to millions of consumers. Today, his brand is a household name. Meet the Raw Pressery guy, and he's here to tell you his story. Hello, one of life's many daily challenges in the kitchen is to make fresh juice. What if we told you that you can actually find fresh juice of a very high quality, made in a factory but delivered to you in a timely way, in a packaging that you will actually love? Well, that's what our founder of Raw Pressery, Anuj Rakhian, does for a living. He makes fresh juice. He calls them cold press, am I correct?
That's right.
Right. And we're going to find out what cold press means, but we're also going to do another thing. We're going to actually make a recycled bag. And that's really going back to nature in many ways, and which is what precisely you're doing too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anuj, thank you very much for being here with me.
Thanks for having me, Govind.
Right. So let's pick up our two bags and start the process, Anuj. So as we do that, Anuj, tell me something. So first of all, how did you decide on fresh juice as a proposition? Because you come from a completely different background. You used to be in diamonds, and before that you were in finance.
Well, I mean, for me, I grew up as an athlete. I wanted to play tennis professionally. And after I had a few injuries, I had to do a severe amount of physiotherapy, and I was also asked to change my diet, and nutrition became very important. And at that point I realized that more than I used to eat well, but when I didn't have time to eat, I needed to focus on drinking well. So I was basically just liquefying fruits and vegetables, which is what we call a juice, and I was making it at home. And I just knew a lot more about it because it helped me recuperate. I think many years later, when I was standing inside a store, I looked at the shelf and I was like, there's nothing over here that I can say which is fresh, which is healthy, which is pure, natural, all those keywords, which is good for me. And it's quite inconvenient to have to make everything yourself all the time. So in a very advanced retail stage that we are in India, I realized that there is nothing that we can drink which we truly believe is honest and healthy for us. Whereas the unorganized market, juices that we make at home, or the what we drink on the street corners or at juice centers, is 100% product, but what we buy on the shelves is not close to anything being 100. So I felt that it's a large enough problem to solve.
Right. So now the proposition is powerful, right? Because you're going to make fresh juice. It's going to feel and taste better than what you could actually make at home, which means there is a whole supply chain behind that. So tell us about the supply chain.
Well, what we realized as we were scaling is that India is beautiful in its output of fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, a lot of them get wasted, along the entire supply chain. So we started going back and talking to the farmers and really trying to understand, how it is that they harvest things, and where do they have cold storages. Are they able to transport, their fruits and vegetables quickly enough? And at that point, we learned that what we're actually buying, for home use is not the freshest fruit and vegetable. It's not kept in the most hygienic way. And we said, we can change that. So from the farm first to our facility, and then from our facility, rather than using distributors, can we actually deliver to your doorstep or deliver to the retail shelf?
Right. So that's the other brave thing that you've done. You've bypassed the entire distributor stockist chain completely to deliver directly.
Yeah.
Right. So Anuj, give me an example. You said that you went to the farm, you found farmers. So give us an example of a fruit and how you went searching for it and sourced it.
Okay. I think pomegranate is a great example. It grows, widely in Maharashtra. It's one of those fruits which is considered to be a superfruit, highly nutritious for all of us. But it's also quite difficult to make juice at home all the time from it. And whether you want the taste of the seeds or whether you don't, and hence. So when we went to the farms, we realized that there's a lot of organized producers for this, except that, then taking out the aerials of the pomegranate is also a challenge. And there's a large part of the fruit which is unused, which is the entire rind. So you're transporting something that actually may not be used for juicing eventually, or eating it as well. So when we looked at that, we said, how can we store it? How can we harvest it? How can we work with farmers on this? And we realized that we had to talk to thousands and thousands of farmers, consolidate them, aggregate them, and then start this process. And that's where we realized that quality control becomes so important, cold storage has become so important, having a supply chain back to your facility in a certain amount of time becomes very important.
Right. So, the key ingredient or word in your offering is cold press.
That's right.
So tell us about that.
So what cold pressed is basically it's the extraction of juice from the fruit or the vegetable without any heat or without any air or oxygen in the entire process. So you've got a juice which is got more nutrition and it has more life, and hence it's a more superior form of juice extraction than what we use at home. And one mustn't confuse.
And I must say that our bag is also beginning to take life.
One mustn't confuse the so-called marketed cold-pressed juicers to be the ones that I am speaking about. I think that's just one of the reasons that people are picking up on that word because it's a better juice. But essentially something which has no heat, no air in the extraction of the juice is the nutritious juice that we're talking about.
And how long does it last, what you make?
So the cold pressed juice will last you for about 2 or 3 days, and then what we do is then we pressurize it. So without heating it or pasteurizing it, without adding any preservatives or adding any kind of artificial flavors or additives. So 100% of the juice comes from 100% of farm produce. What we do is we pressurize it. With that pressure, the bacteria are prevented from growing as long as you keep it in a refrigerated temperature. And with that, you can get about 20 to 25 days of shelf life.
Right. So it's even 20 days is actually not all that much if I were to compare with what I see on retail.
That's right.
And in that, I guess that's your way of guaranteeing that this is real.
Well, like I said, we say that in food and beverage, almost everything that's good for you can go bad, and almost everything that's bad for you will mostly stay good.
Right. And this is distribution and supply chain is a very critical component of your business. And you started by going online. You switched to going, or rather, added on going retail. In retail, you first tried the distributor stockist model because everyone else does that, and then you settled on the model that you now approach, or that you've now adopted, which is the direct distribution.
Absolutely. I think the most challenging part of any fresh business is to scale it. And in that, we were earlier told that the only way to grow FMCG kind of a business is to have distributors and or stockists and follow a hub and spoke distribution method. And so we said, okay, though against my better judgment, I said let's try it, and we did. And we appointed some distributors, but to be honest, the distributors were not able to manage the temperature. They didn't really care for the product in the same way that it should. And net, the consumer was not really drinking a product which would be the same quality at the point that we produced it. And so we said, look, let's take on this challenge. Very, very few companies in India have done this, where we will run the cold chain ourselves. So whether we deliver to your doorstep, or whether we deliver to a cafe, or whether we deliver to the airport, or whether we deliver to all the modern trade retail stores across the country, we'll do the primary logistics, the warehousing, the secondary last mile to the shelf ourselves, and to your doorstep ourselves. That way we can control. What we can't do is we can't control the temperature at which the retailer keeps the product, but
short of that,
everything else we can control.
So, right. How many bottles leave your factory every morning or night, as the case might be?
So actually, we do it by anywhere around 1.5 million bottles a month is where we are right now, and this will gradually move to about 3 to 4 million as our capacity starts increasing.
And it'll be at the same place?
At the same place. Okay. That's right.
And you're not planning to expand your production capacity?
We are.
As in geographically, that is?
No, so we're already available in about 15 cities in India and in the Middle East. So, but what we're really going to try and do is put up more filling lines and bottling centers across the country as well.
Right. Yeah. So Anush, tell us, you got into this business because something happened. You had a life-changing mishap a long time ago.
Correct. I mean, from a very young age, I wanted to be an athlete and play sports professionally, and spent a lot of time training in tennis and cricket. Much later, when I came back to India, while I was playing for a club in Bombay football, I broke my back during an injury, and for someone who had been very active for 20 years of their life, not being able to walk properly or sit properly, my back was compressed and my tailbone had shattered. It was very, very difficult. So because of that, I understood discipline and fitness and nutrition to a much greater degree than I think most mid-20-year-old guys would, and spent time making juice and just eating right and just understanding, I'm vegetarian, how things are grown, and just took more interest in this. Frankly, never thought of it that it would be a business for me later on. It was more of a passion and an interest. But having said that, if it wouldn't have happened, maybe Raw Pressery wouldn't have happened either.
Right. So most of your consumers are young people? Is that your understanding?
Between 18 and 40, or would really be our target audience. Most of them living in cities, having jobs.
So what's a hurdle? What's a significant hurdle that you faced in this journey so far?
I think that the business has been capital intensive because nobody in India was doing this. So we were the first company to actually go out there and create a product of this kind. And so convincing people that we need machinery which can make this kind of a product was quite a challenge. And until today, we're building a large FMCG business in a time where everybody wants to just follow tech businesses which have non-linear growth. So strong unit economics, making people realize that this is an actual product with an actual consumer is something that we needed to kind of show people. And I think that's been the challenge, and that's what we've been able to do.
And you were telling me earlier that almost 25% of or rather only 25% of your product goes online.
Right.
Most of it is actually retail.
Well, yes. I mean, modern trade makes up about 65–70% of our business today, and will continue to dominate the lion's share in terms of numbers. And we, whether it's online or offline, it's still the same consumer. The number of online spaces that are actually doing fresh are still limited, though they're growing very rapidly. And we're focused on them. I think that the real growth in the next few years is going to come from the e-commerce verticals.
Right. Right, so we're going to leave a little message for our viewers here. And the last question, Anuj, as we run out of time, is what's that one line that you tell yourself or you say to ensure that you never stop?
There's an interesting quote I had read a long time ago by Henry Ford. It says, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, either way you're right. And whenever we have challenges, I often we're all human, and we have doubt, and then we have to have confidence. And so I always think that if I can think, if I think I can do it, then I'm right, I can do it. And if I think I can't, then I probably won't do it. So I keep myself going with that.
Thanks, Anuj. Nothing like Henry Ford to end this wonderful episode, and it was wonderful speaking to you as well. And here is what we did today: the never stop.